welcome back to another episode of Real People, Real Money. I'm your host, Megan, and we're brought to you, as always, by ERC Guaranteed. I'm excited today to talk to our guest with M1 Studios, co-owner Mike Madigan. Thank you so much for taking some time to be with us today on the program.
Sounds good. No problem.
So tell us a little bit about your business. How did you get into this line of work, and what do you love about it? Let's get to know you a little bit before we get into the nitty-gritty.
Sure. M1 Studios, we're a creative content agency producing visual content for businesses and organizations. So 2023 is actually our 15th year in business. So we're located in the Detroit, Michigan area, and we serve clients locally, nationally, and even internationally. And we focus on all aspects of production, including pre-production, storyboard, scripting, production, actually filming on location or in studio for clients, and then the post-production process, editing, voiceover, music, color correction, and then final delivery for use either online or internally, maybe training video content or online or even television commercial content as well.
Okay, super cool. I was actually thinking about that. I'm sure a lot of our viewers, we've been actually interviewing all different types of industries and stuff. So you're first in this field. And people, I don't think in general are thinking about how much is going on behind the scenes when we see a billboard or we see a TV commercial or a pre-roll on YouTube. Like there's all these different things. And yet there's such a difference in when companies are investing in the quality deliverable to make sure that they really stand out in their field. What is one of the things that is like your favorite thing to do amid all the different types of production things that you do? Are there certain things that you just get so excited about project wise?
Well, I really like the post-production, the editing process, right? Because, you do have scripts and storyboards which to work from, but a lot of it comes together in the editing process, right? Whether it's interviews, the actual voiceover, musical cues, music composition, and really trying to tell that story. And sometimes you're in a limited format, it could be 30 seconds, 60 seconds, sometimes it could be longer, and, trying to get that message across for the viewer and ultimately for your client as well. So our focus is B2B. So we don't really work on the consumer side. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just not where our particular focus is for business.
Roger that. Very cool. Well, it definitely sounds like you love what you do. And I think that has been really fun too, to see people that we have been interviewing are people that have these really specific things they're passionate about, and it takes all different types to make the world such a delightful and enriching place for us to live. Tell us a little bit about this process. So we're getting written right to it with the ERC. Is this something that you sought out on your own? Did somebody tell you about it? How did this come up for you?
So we have an accountant, I mentioned about, hey, been hearing about this ERC, and it wasn't really something they specialized in, which is probably true for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And we actually did use another company initially who got us an ERC refund back, but it was only for 1 quarter. And I was part of this. It's called SBA Thrive. It's a SBA business meeting community. And they said, we think you probably should have gotten more back, right? Oh. We think that it because everyone was affected, right? I'm not sure there was a business that wasn't affected in somehow. I mean, here in Michigan, we had to shut down. We had to shut down and for, months on end. So we had clients cancel because they're like, well, we can't be in a studio. We can't be near each other. So, it definitely affected us. So, we were, I was talking with my SBA Thrive group, and they said, I think there's probably some more money on the table here. And I just didn't know because I was like, well, we got this small amount back. I thought it was great. I thought it was done. So in speaking with ERC Guaranteed, providing them our information, we realized that there was a lot more money on the table because our business was so affected by the COVID and the pandemic and the downturn that happened.
Yeah. As everything was going on during these past few years, there's a lot of different ups and downs and moments of oh, have we finally turned the corner? What was some of this when it, just in the process, when is this helping you regain confidence or even be more excited about what is to come? Kind of the culmination of feelings from someone who is a storyteller. Paint that picture for us.
Sure. Well, I'd say, it's no surprise in the news that there's been a lot of talk of recession. And are we in one? Are we not in one? It's hard to say. But, starting out in the new year, This is kind of when we got our ERC refunds, and the IRS had them, and I actually got a hold of the IRS and called them, and they said, "Yeah, you're processed. You're going through." And I was like, "Wow, really? Okay." So it was kind of a great surprise, right? It was almost a little hard to believe, but it did work and go through, and so that's definitely helped us. We are able to kind of start the new year off right here in terms of being able to have that kind of cushion, to continue on as we kind of weather through what may be a recession, I'd say.
Yeah, fair enough. So what was the process like for you when you started working with ERC Guaranteed? How would you explain the process to someone who's looking into it?
Sure. So you kind of do have to have your books in order in some fashion, right? I work with our accountant, so I was able to pull up the reports. It helps if you have depending on your number of employees, it helps if you have a payroll system because you have to generate the earnings of each employee per period. If you have a payroll system, you can just ask and it can just, they can be generated. Otherwise, you would have to do some manual work on that part. You do have to have the information on if you got any payroll protection program loans. You do have to have that information too to include in there. And then just they just basically have this questionnaire that they go through, and you note some of the other ways in which your business was affected, during the downturn. Did you have to close? Did you have to lay off employees? How long were you closed? Were there any regulations in your state that forced you to close? And so it kind of takes you through those steps. So, you had to be a little organized in the fact of having all your kind of information data in order, but most business owners either have that or have access to that in some fashion, and then going through that process after that.
In your industry, you probably have this dance of people that are actually employees versus freelancers. I don't know how much that may have had in any complications in the space. And it does sort of sound like there's a lot of different steps, but really it's still fairly non-threatening in the space as long as you're semi-organized. So what were some of those factors like, or did that play a factor at all in a space where you kind of have a variety of the types of people that you work with?
We do have some freelancers that we work with. However, most of our employees are considered on a full-time basis. Okay. And so having all that data, because the ERC only really does apply for those who are considered, I believe, full-time employees. Yeah. So that is where you're going to get the greatest impact from in showing that they're, showing their income and then showing the potential credits that could happen as a result of that.
Yeah. And I just think it's so important for people to hear that there's all industries are eligible. And so we're enjoying sharing these stories out from different people, different sizes of companies, and different structures, because some people might be self-eliminating or feeling too overwhelmed or getting inaccurate information. Because as you were saying at one point, it's not necessarily like the strength of or the expertise area for accountants and CPAs. They certainly do an amazing job with their individual space. And yet it's scary to think that people are not even taking those steps just because they either think it might be too complicated, or maybe it's too good to be true, or maybe they're not going to even be eligible. So what simple words of encouragement might you give someone who is even just thinking about it? Like, I don't know, I'm like leading you immediately to the obvious answer, but they need to hear it. I think they need to hear it, Mike.
Yeah, I would say, I would say the government did not do a good job of promoting this, and maybe that's on purpose, because it could be. And, if you're working with an accountant, the main reason they'll probably tell you, that it takes some time on that back end, not your back end, but their back end to figure this all out, which is what ERC Guaranteed does for you. So, so your accountant may just dismiss you just because they really don't have the time to put it all together. So that's why reaching out to ERC Guaranteed and, and they're going to kind of go with you in the process and, getting that, and you won't have an estimate right away, but that's okay, because I think, they're doing the due diligence part of it to make sure that you get, the money correctly back from the IRS. And you've already paid this. I mean, if you have because it's basically based on employee tax rolls. So, right. You've already, as a company, you've already paid this. So, and then it affects, your 2020 financials, and then it affects the first, second, and third quarter of 2020. Sorry, yeah, first, second, and third quarter of 2021. And then if you're a startup business, you can apply for the fourth quarter of 2021, but that's only if you're a startup, which we weren't. So.
Oh, gotcha. Wow. See, there's so many things. This is why you need an expert to help guide through the process. This is why we are here. Right. Thank you, Mike, so much for your time. This has been really enlightening. And honestly, it's stories like these that we want people to hear, that they can just go, oh, you know what? Maybe it's worth taking a look into. Maybe this is something that I could qualify for. And what a relief to be able to have this infusion of some additional funding and have those resources to keep doing the things that you love so much to do for your clients, so that the joy just keeps on being reciprocal. So, anything that we didn't touch on that you would feel compelled to share with anyone that's out there listening?
Yeah, I think we were a little different because we'd actually used somebody else, and we got what I thought was a good amount back at the time. Yeah. And we shared that information with ERC Guaranteed. So we didn't, that's already done. So we didn't, use that part, but we were owed a lot more, right? Or we qualified for a lot more than we initially got. So had I wished we'd gone with them first? Yes. And other companies, I would say, out there may have already been approached by some other groups that say, we can get you $26,000 per person and stuff like that. Rather than sit there and try to do the math and figure that out, just talk to them and present your numbers correctly, and then they'll help you through that process.
Perfect. Oh, yeah. You said it so perfectly. Those of you that are out there watching, thank you so much for taking the time to watch our show. We have more stories coming if you still need some convincing to look into it. It's ERC Guaranteed. My name is Megan. Thank you so much, Mike, for being on with us today for another episode of Real People, Real Money. Until next time.